Here.
Angie Skilling. Here. Carl Palmer.
Here.
Kate Smith.
Here.
Dominique Stewart.
Here.
Rachel Henderson.
Here.
Dale Dalkey.
Here.
Amber Kirsten.
Here. We have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our mission, the school district of the Menomonie area, by embracing the unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. Do you have any suggested revisions to the agenda order? Seeing none. Next up, we have recommendations and commendations. And we have two tonight. Dale, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm going to just read it from here. This is for Matt Wagner. I don't believe he's here tonight. And so, Board of Education in the Menomonie School District, the Menomonie area, recognizes Matt Wagner, building new grounds, worked extremely hard to ensure that the MHS cross-country course is well prepared for the Big Rivers Conference Championships and for the WIAA Division I sectional, both of which were hosted at the Menomonie. Matt spent hours grading trails, wood chipping the hills, and lining the course with tremendous attention to detail. Menomonie is very lucky to have a cross-country course on school grounds. Most courses the teams run are on golf courses. Having a course that our teams can train and compete on is a great training opportunity. Thanks to Matt, we have one of the finest in the state, allowing us opportunities to host these outstanding events. Just a personal note, I'm very honored to be able to present this to Matt because I was officiating at three very large meets. Actually, this one talked about two of them, the conference and the sectional, but we also hosted a very large invitational that had about 20 teams at it. And not only did we have a ton of athletes in Menomonie, but the spectator crowd was truly amazing. Hundreds and hundreds of people at each of those three meets. All of them commented about the wonderful course, how spectator friendly it was, and how good a shape it was in. So kudos to Matt.
Thanks, Dale, and thanks, Matt, who is not here, but we really appreciate him. Our second commendation is for Casey Yonach. I think you should bring
We're in the separation.
Okay. Casey organized Smart Girls Rock this year, where over 230 middle school girls participated and were given an opportunity to ask questions and interact with area professionals in STEAM careers. Casey spent countless hours contacting presenters and setting up this amazing event for our female students. We really appreciate Casey's work in helping students gain exposure to careers in the STEAM field. So thank you so much.
Next up, we have our highlight on youth.
The November highlight on youth is attached to the school board's review. It's also available for the public. It'll be shared in the district email with families as well. But like the previous months, just a terrific example of all the wonderful accomplishments of our students. At the high school level, you can see information about the band playing at Wilson Park, about freshmen who toured CBTC, the cross-country team, all sorts of great activities. With the middle school, the Smart Girls Rock program, there's a picture. How many girls was it again, Casey?
I think the official count was 237.
237 girls attended, and we appreciate the partnerships with our community. Something like that would not be possible without those great partnerships. Also, it has the students earlier in the fall at Jarrett Creek. They'll be sharing their results of their study at the UW South Watershed Conference this spring. At the elementary level, we had some high school students put on the Downsville Elementary and work with the FIAD class on sportsmanship. At Knapp Elementary, there's some good examples there of some art the students have done, also the Unity Day activities. Oak Lawn, you can see Lucky the Lion visited students out at the bus drop-off. That happens once a month. There was also a great demonstration from the Menomonie Fire Department, and I know the students always love that. At River Heights, again, celebration of Unity Day, also some nice activities with our AIM program, Arts Integration Menomonie, and also the Road Runner Rally. At Wakanda Elementary School, there's some pictures of the Halloween dress-up, also work or examples from the Leadership Club, and kindergarten students working with small groups. So again, appreciate the principals and all the staff members for putting this information together, and certainly there's a lot of wonderful things happening in our schools each month.
Thank you. Next, we have student representative communications.
Good evening, members of the school board. We appreciate the opportunity to share some exciting updates from the student council.
Absolutely. Let's start with the trunk or treat event that took place on Monday, October 30th. It was a fantastic collaboration involving the high school's special education staff, leadership class students, and unified peer partners.
The event kicked off with a trunk or treat featuring over 15 cars showcasing the creativity and effort of our participants. After grabbing their treats, students headed into the gym for a Halloween dance, games, and various activities. We're thrilled to report that it was a highly successful year for this event.
Moving on to our FFA achievements. Menomonie FFA made us proud at the National FFA Convention. Kinsey Singer House earned the prestigious American FFA degree, an accomplishment achieved by less than 1% of FFA members nationwide. Madison Clark secured second place in the nation for her outstanding work with her horse project. These achievements truly reflect the dedication and hard work of our FFA members.
And let's not forget the collective effort of DECA, FBLA, and National Honor Society in the annual Trick or Can event. Our students collected over 1,700 items from the Menomonie community. The donations were given to Stepping Stones, and we're proud to have made a positive impact in our local community.
Lastly, we wanted to highlight our recent assembly in honor of Veterans Day held this past Friday. It was a meaningful opportunity for our student body to express gratitude and appreciation for the sacrifices made by our veterans.
In conclusion, these events showcase the diverse talents and community spirit within our school. We're proud of the achievements of our students and grateful for the support of the school board in fostering a positive and engaging environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here for the presentation. All right, next we have community communications. This is a time to air concerns and express your opinions on issues. There should be no negative personal attacks against any individuals, including staff, board members, or administrators. The opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by the various speakers during community communications do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, or viewpoints of individual board members, the board as a whole, or the school district of the Menomonie area. We have a few speakers tonight, and first we have Margaret Reich. And just as a reminder, there's a 3-minute time limit.
We are told revenue limits have not been keeping up with inflation, and I agree with that. We all agree with that. However, there are many sources of revenue outside the revenue limits. If we examine our annual report since 2009, 2010, we find several things. One, our operating fund revenues have been exceeding expenses by an average of $900,000 a year. Secondly, our fund balance has grown from $3.4 million to a little over $17 million. Our fund balance reserves have grown 401% compared to inflation growing 26%. And our expenditures for students have increased $14,000 per student to $18,000 per student. And that's almost identical to inflation, inflationary increase. So if we have not been receiving adequate revenue to meet the needs of our students, why have we kept increasing our fund balance by about $900,000 a year? That's the question that goes through my mind. However, COVID funding is going away, and the lingering impact of COVID on our academic and emotional needs of our children don't disappear instantaneously. That is why I can easily support a 3 to 5, even a 10-year non-recurring referendum to address needs of our students from the COVID impact. And that I understand, but a recurring $4.2 million that goes on until Jesus Christ comes back, that I don't understand. And but I think the major disagreements, I don't know if I want to use that word, is do we believe these are long-term or short-term things that can be taken care of? If you believe it's never going to get better, you need a recurring referendum. If you think things are going to get better, the non-recurring is the way to go. Thank you.
Sure, we can take it and enter it into the record. Thanks, Margaret. And I appreciate Margaret bringing up the district fund balance, and I think it's worth just noting in case there are questions. When I came to the district 10 years ago, that was one of the things, one of the goals the board set right away was to make sure the fund balance was sufficient to avoid interest costs for short-term borrowing. And that is a priority that the board had. And a lot of people don't understand that, but we don't receive our revenue every month from tax payments or from the state. So when you think about all the expenses that the school district has, it's very important for cash flow reasons that the district has a sufficient fund balance. Otherwise, it's kind of like a double-edged sword where you have these expenses and then you have more expenses because of interest. So I do think that the fund balance is something that's very important. I think our district and our school boards of past have done a really good job prioritizing that, but that's why the fund balance is where it's at. It's at a sustainable level where our district does not need to waste money paying interest.
Thank you for that additional information. Our next speaker is Josie Tillman.
And members of the board. Statistics show that children raised in a traditional one mom and one dad family committed to each other for life do much better at school academically, emotionally, and socially. So as the SDNA looks to raise the scores on standard tests, this would be a logical place to put our focus. It does not happen without intentionality. A strong family needs a strong leader. The father is the leader of the family. How can we train up our young men to be strong leaders? I can think of two main areas. The first is to teach young men about their role in morality. It takes a good understanding of the male mind to know how to convince them that this is worth fighting for. Our culture teaches that feelings are right and good. This is not true. Our hearts are deceitful and selfish. We really don't care who we harm to get what we want. This ends in disaster for the individual and for the family unit we are trying so hard to preserve. Young men need moral, self-control, disciplined role models who can dish out the truth without apology. Disciplined men must know how to defer present enjoyment in order to wait for future fulfillment. The Marriage Act is beautiful, but it comes with boundaries. This takes patience. It is to be enjoyed exclusively within the boundaries of marriage relationship. Temptations are great, but it is worth the wait. Procreation is not intended to be recreation. Within a marriage, the normal expectation would be for children to reproduce, be fruitful, and multiply. Young men must also be prepared for this responsibility of children. A second area of responsibility where we must incline our young men to be leaders is in the area of protecting the lives of the unborn. In a marriage relationship, the one primarily involved in protecting is the father. Unborn human babies are so vulnerable, so dependent on their fathers for protection. It is important in the SDNA to have male teachers of high moral conviction who can be role models for our young men, teaching about protecting the life of the unborn. To protect that helpless little baby, the father must encourage the mother to nurture and save the baby. It takes courage, character, and strong moral fortitude to protect a little human being. This is for strong men. Strong fathers is not for wimps. It is a matter of life and death. And this kind of intentionality will provide for healthy families in the Menomonie area. It will raise our test scores without a doubt, and it will develop responsible citizens. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker tonight is Tammy Weiss.
Hello, my name is Tammy Weiss. When I was a teacher at a district, not Chief Farm, I was the yearbook advisor. And there were a few occasions when a child missed their activity or sports team pictures for one reason or another. And the coach would bring me a photo of them in their uniform, and I'd superimpose their body into the team picture of the club. And while I was mildly annoyed to have this extra task, oftentimes in the 11th hour, I understand the reason for it. Well, now more than ever. The coach wanted all their players to have their pictures in the team photo because, after all, they were all valued members of the team. This is my first time taking a complaint to the school board. I can see how you might examine our situation and interpret it as trivial for the school board. We're just a couple of parents causing a lot of fuss over a seemingly insignificant issue, or as our daughter might say, over an insignificant student, because that's how she's feeling. From a teacher's perspective, my syllabus states that 3 absences are allowed before it will affect their grade. If I decided to lower a student's grade after one missed class meeting, the students and the administration would be in an uproar. This may sound silly, but I ask you to consider this scenario for your own workplace, if you will. If your boss pulled you aside and said, hey, by the way, I'm going to deduct a day's pay salary from you because you didn't show up to the department meal last night. I know it was optional last year, but I made it mandatory this year, and I didn't tell you or the staff that it was required. I didn't put it in the contract, but it actually now counts as a day's work. No matter whose shoes you put yourself in, boss or employee, you know that isn't right, and it isn't fair. When a coach's communication, expectations, and punishments aren't clear, a student athlete can become confused and hurt, especially if they don't understand where the penalties came from or why the punitive measures were so extreme. And if a coach really believes that these kinds of practices will prevent the athlete from making further errors in their performance, well, they're right, because the athlete will play. We can't help but wish that the Menomonie School District had shown our daughter some empathy, for she did not falter one bit in her commitment to the team except for missing one practice, which included the team picture.
That's time, and I also just want to make sure you refrain from talking about specific students during a publicly recorded.
I didn't mention any.
That I know, and I don't think that you did anything wrong, but I'm making a reminder
Okay.
about the policy. But it's also a 3-minute time limit.
Okay, do I get to finish my 2 sentences?
You can finish your sentence.
Thank you. Imagine if the district's response was to Photoshop our daughter's image into the team picture instead of punishing her for one of their ignorance.
Thank you. Our final speaker tonight is Stephen Munfree.
Hi everyone, thanks for letting me speak to you. Yeah, we thought the punishment was a little too severe for our daughter, and it did cause us to ask this, how perfect does a student athlete have to be?
I'm going to hit pause on my timer and just jump in again. I know you haven't mentioned a name, but we do have a legal concern about discussing particulars that are identifiable of any student during a publicly recorded public meeting.
Okay, I'll try not to be too particular. If a person were to make every practice, every team meal, every fundraiser, and every match, perhaps there should be consideration about their desire to be a team player. Perfection is wonderful in a fairy tale world, but as we learned this last weekend from the school musical Into the Woods, perfection is hard to come by. In my opinion, an athlete on a team is not unlike the position you hold as board members. Both of you have taken on an important responsibility with dignity, hard work, and tremendous personal sacrifice. So in closing, I ask, how perfect are you? Have you ever missed one board meeting, a committee meeting? Have you ever overslept? If you are honest enough to admit that you faltered one time, then I would suggest that you designate a board meeting where you sit in a chair out here, outside of the arena. You're not allowed to participate, but you will be visible enough for your peers, your family, and everyone in the room to witness your singular imperfection. Now, you know I find it a ridiculous notion to suggest you should have to do this because you missed one meeting. But that is what one athlete we know very well was faced with. So tonight, when you examine the tennis expectations, you will come to the conclusion that our child did not violate anything on that expectation. Maybe a warning or a caution would have been more helpful. I know a good athlete would have taken it to heart. So we ask you to look hard at the tennis policies and expectations to see if anything was violated on that chart. And then we ask you to consider, was the punishment too harsh? And to acknowledge that it was, because none of us can rise to that kind of expectation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We have one additional community communication speaker tonight. I'm sorry. Stay right there. Mike Cooper, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. In my last presentation to the board, I finished by sharing the story of an interposition of the state of Wisconsin between the United States and an individual who was arrested for helping a slave escape to Canada. The purpose of the story was to show the responsibility that the lesser magistrate has in protecting the members of society that they are responsible for, protect them from immoral, unjust laws or regulations. This evening, I would like to continue with that presentation by reading some excerpts from the book, The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrates by Matthew Trelaw. When we speak of lesser magistrates, we are usually talking about a more local authority. Whatever the local authority may be, its jurisdiction is smaller than the higher authority that legislate an unjust or immoral decree. Whether a governor or a state legislature standing in defiance of the President or Congress or the Supreme Court, or whether a mayor or city council standing in defiance of a governor or Congress or state legislature, the authority of the lesser magistrate is more local than the higher magistrate. Lesser magistrates are not to just unquestionably do the bidding of the higher authority. State governments, for example, were never intended to be mere conduits or implementation centers for federal government regulation, law, and policy, as they have become today. Herbert Schlossberg speaks of this point as magnum opus, items for destruction. He said regarding the lesser magistrates, the framers of the American Constitution were conscious of the excesses to which centralized political systems were prone, and their solution was to devise multiple levels of authority. The existence of states, cities, counties, townships, and independent taxing authorities, which to apologists for the state may be a messy derivation of beneficent centralized power, has saved us from some of the assaults on freedom that others have suffered. He also points out that in our day, these intermediate institutions, which formerly served to check the central power, have largely atrophied. He later concludes, after 3/4 of a century, the new nationalism has borne bitter fruit. people who have despised the right of the localities to govern themselves and delivered them into the hands of fickle masters. Local politicians have acquiesced in the money of the provinces because in return for the giving up of political authority, they have received monetary benefits. In other words, with the shekels and the shackles. Continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have revenue and expenditure report for the month of October 2023.
Okay, we'll take a look at the revenue reports first, if you'd like to open that document. In the notes, I've noted for October, we received the 23-24 general equalization aid payment certification, which was done on October 15th. And then monies received in were just local revenues and donations, which are typical for this time period for the month. For our total Fund 10 general fund, we received in $154,634.39. And then in our Fund 21, which is our gift donation fund, we received in $83,402.87. Moving on to our expenditure report by object. Again, nothing unusual for the month of October, just difference of one-time purchases and billings from one year to the next. So year-to-date, month ending October 2023, we've received it in, or we're at 18.02% in expenditures compared to 18.24% for the same time last year, just slightly less. And then if we look at the final report of expenditures broken down by function, for our Fund 10 expenditures, we're at 18.54 compared to 19.42 over the same time last year. And then in Special Education Fund 27, we're at 17.73 compared to 18.03. And then lastly, food service in Fund 50, we're at 17.7% compared to 19.15%. So across all funds, slightly down this year compared to last year. Any questions?
All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on to the monthly employment report.
This informational item is for the board. It's presented to the board monthly. Unless there's questions, it's just for your information.
Don't see any questions or comments. And then, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Dave.
On the consent agenda, we have minutes from the regular board meeting of October 9th, the special board meeting of October 23rd, financial reports, general fund checks in the amount of $2,425,092.04, and cash receipts in the amount of $129,157.85, no donations exceeding $1,000, and the certification of a school safety drill at River Heights. Any questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, let's vote. Motion passes 9-0. Moving on, we have the personnel consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the personnel consent agenda.
So moved.
Second, motion by Carl, second by Dominique. We have a couple of retirement, resignation, and a hire, one each. Any questions?
Rachel, I just wanted to point out that Mr. Randy Stockey will be retiring at the end of the school year. Mr. Stocky has been in the district for decades. After a short stint in Wausau, he's touched the lives of many students through his work as a teacher and also as a coach. And we certainly will miss Mr. Stocky and wish him well after he retires at the end of the school year.
Any questions on the personnel consent agenda? If not, let's vote. And motion passes 9-0. We have no action agenda items tonight, so we'll move on to the discussion items. First up, we have our athletics and activities report from our Frankie.
Yeah, Rachel, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Michelle Guyatt-Holloway. This is Mrs. Guyatt-Holloway's first school board meeting during her first year here in Menomonie. So Michelle, before you get to your report, if you could just introduce yourself to the board members briefly and just give them a little bit of your history, whatever you're willing to share, and then you can go ahead and get into your report, please.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. I've been here for now a little over 4 months, so still in the newbie stage, and I'm going to keep using that as my rationale for anything. But everyone has been great since I've been here. A little bit of where I've been. I previously was 8 years at Wauwatosa East High School. I was the athletic director down there. And prior to that, I was in the collegiate world. I was at UW Parkside and Mount Mary University as an associate athletic director and athletic director there. Prior to that, I was a coach of women's basketball, Shenandoah University in Virginia, where I was head coach there for 6 years. And then prior to that, I was at Northern Michigan University. I was an assistant coach there for 7 years, which was my alma mater as well, too. So I've kind of been in the athletic world literally my whole life, in a variety of positions, and very excited to have had the opportunity to be able to come up here in a very quick time period when I was interviewed and hired and accepted the position. But again, athletics, I've been in many different hats and in my time frame, so I really feel I have a very strong understanding from the coach, the student athlete perspective, as well as there we go. As an administrator as well too, and I look forward to working with our coaches and our student athletes to make progress in areas and continue to learn more about the community in the area. But it's been a great time so far, and I look forward to many more months and years to come. So with that, I'm going to do my best to recap what happened last year. It's kind of one of those, like, hey, you need to do this report and provide information about what happened last year. And I will be very honest that obviously I don't know a lot of these names as probably well as you have, but I relied upon my administrative assistant, Martha Peabody, to help with some of this information to get an idea of what transpired last year. So as I believe you have in your information there, just some of the highlights that had happened last year. Band and choir had some really strong success again at the state level, earning several different awards for some individuals. I'm not going to go into the specifics because you have that, but we also had success at the state level with some of our athletic programs in our wrestling, boys hockey, girls basketball as well too, which again is a great accomplishment. Again, some of our other programs, our FFA, again working on some great opportunities that were presented itself at the state level. Some of our student athletes and our individual teams, apparel. Thank you. I was going to say paramilitary there for a second, Veterans Day, so that was on my mind there. The procedure team obviously taking first at state, that is a tremendous accomplishment for those group of student athletes. Equestrian team, again, they did as well this year, but did a great job last year, finishing in second place, winning the Spirit Award, as they did this year as well too, but that's for next year. You know, again, just some really great opportunities and qualifications, you know, Science Olympiad, as I'm learning more and more about, you know, having 34 students being able to compete at that level is a tremendous accomplishment. Having some of our students be able to go at the national level as well, you know, it's a great testament to the advisors that put the time and the effort into working with our student athletes and our students, as well as, you know, those students and student athletes and the time that goes into the different components. I was kind of bummed seeing that the musical last year was SpongeBob, because I know my 9-year-old would have loved going to that, and as we were at yesterday's musical, I mentioned to that, his eyes lit up, and I'm like, sorry, we're a year late. But again, just, you know, some great accomplishments and what they're able to do. Obviously, our Booster Club is an important aspect of support financially, as well as time and effort for the success of our student athletes. Approximately $30,000 that they were able to donate and contribute back to the program. As I've gotten to know, and members of the community, Jeff Hastings stepped down from the club. Jeff, I remember someone telling me that he was part of that club for about 15 years or so in that position. Obviously, the sports complex. When I came up here for my interview and I saw that, I was quite amazed and excited to see a field and bleachers and a track to that level. We have some really great facilities. We still have some improvements in other areas, but overall we have some really great facilities, and that definitely is an added bonus that we'll be able to utilize, not just from the athletic side, but from anything within our physical education classes and our youth groups in the community and stuff, to be able to utilize that. We did some live streaming last year. We're doing live streaming again this year. It's a little bit different, but we have that component as well too. And then just to top it off, Herb Cole scholarship winners, to be able to have 2 individuals be able to receive that is a great accomplishment as well, along with about half a dozen of student athletes that were able to commit and continue on their athletic career in the college world is, again, another great accomplishment and testament to the coaches, advisors, students, and teachers, and parents as well, too, that put in that time and effort for them to be able to be as successful as possible.
Well, we appreciate that summary, Michelle, that it would be difficult to do after not being here, but board members, as you know, Michelle also put forward the annual athletic results, so you can review those at your leisure. And then also the activity spending analysis, which is broken down in terms of how much the district expends on the different activities, and then also how many participants. And we always find it amazing to see how many students participate. 927 participants from last year when you combine all of the sports and activities together. Now, some of those students obviously participate in more than one activity, but a high percentage of our students at the high school take advantage of this great opportunity. And Brian will talk more about the participation levels when we get to our report card 2.0 at the next school board meeting. But I do think there's a misconception. People think a large portion of the budget is spent on sports and other activities, but as you can see, it really isn't very much of the budget at all. In fact, it's a small percentage, especially when you consider some of the revenue that comes back. We're very fortunate in Menomonie that many of our sports and co-curricular activities receive terrific community support. So a lot of times you'll see our students with, whether it be new uniforms or terrific settings for the play musical. But most of that stuff isn't purchased through school district dollars. A lot of that is through the fundraising efforts of the coaches, advisors, and participants, and a lot of it is through donations and other private support from parents, business leaders, and others in the community. So when you consider the revenue compared to the expenses, it really is a terrific investment for our school district. Michelle was at the musical on Sunday, and my family and I, we went to opening night, and it is just tremendous. And what really blew me away, besides the great performance of our students and the preparation from our advisors, but looking at the program and seeing how many community members are involved, whether it be with the choreography or taking photos or just doing those types of things. Dominique was leading the pit, and to have a live musical pit for a musical, that's not something that happens in that many schools. And we're very, very fortunate not only to have a pit, but to have a really good pit. Carl was selling concessions between the intermission or during the intermission, Carl and his wife, and I mean, those are the kind of things that makes our school district so special. So do you have any questions tonight for Michelle in terms of the activities and athletics report or spending analysis or anything else?
I just had a real quick question about the spending analysis. It says at the bottom that the total revenue does not include any fundraising. Does that mean it also doesn't include the Booster Club contributions?
Correct, as far as I know.
Yeah, this is only, these are only Fund 10 expenditures.
Do we track in-kind donations from those participating families?
The in-kind piece of it, perhaps at the activity level, some activities, they have an expectation that families, take turns working concession stands or doing things, so there may be some tracking that way. Mm-hmm. As a school district, we do not track in-kind donations, but we do, all the monetary donations run through the school Fund 21 budget, so we do have reports on that spending, which would be a whole different category. We're talking about the actual district dollars that are being spent. Any other questions?
I'd like to just add that in addition to the great benefit to our student athletes and our co-curricular activity students as well, at very low cost for students, think also of the tremendous benefit to the community. How many of these activities are bringing people in to view some of these events and spend time and money in our community.
To Dale's point, if you don't mind, this is not a personal plug whatsoever, but the response from the live streaming has really been tremendous. Chad Sutter, who is our live streaming advisor, he went back and looked at all the numbers from the fall live streams, and there were an average now, so I'm not talking at the high or the low, but the average was 1,100 total plays of people playing some aspect of the live stream. Sometimes people came more than once, so we also have unique plays. It was 720, and then 375 total hours viewed per stream. So we've had a tremendous response, and I do think, Dale, I agree with you. I think people really appreciate that opportunity to connect with our schools and our kids, and I think it's one of the many great things we have going on. And I was hoping we could live stream the musical, but I quickly was told that that's against the law. So, thought about maybe making a pirated version, but that would not have been being a good role model.
Remember on the VHS growing up, it said do not, FBI warning.
Definitely don't announce it.
Brian, I think there was a D1 commit for marching band last year too, was there not? Yeah.
Oh, did we miss his name on there? Maybe.
We should add those
Get
next year if we can
that
remember.
added on there.
Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and I just want to say you really did miss something with SpongeBob the musical.
I don't really care for SpongeBob, but I was even a little bummed on that because I think that would have been a lot of fun to watch.
The musical's better than the show.
Next up, we have our annual free and reduced meals eligibility report.
Leah, go ahead.
Okay, so the official free and reduced lunch count is completed each October on the 31st. That's the actual official date. And this fund is used to determine the poverty levels for each school site for our Title I school-wide program funding. And if you take a look at the report there, I have it highlighted in blue. Our total percentage for the year on that date was 42.96%, which is a 7.48% increase over last year. And you'll note last year there was a reduction of 8.14. So free and reduced numbers are going up. It is a trend we've been seeing. Most of the families that qualify, the students, it's through direct certification right through the state of Wisconsin.
That's interesting. I was just wondering if that, the prior year, if that decrease had something to do with the universal free lunches. In other words, if people weren't applying to certify because they didn't have to?
That could be, yeah, that could have played a part.
Are the thresholds for those numbers in the certification in terms of income and family need, are those inflation adjusted by the state? Well, they are. So, yeah, okay. So to the extent, I think definitely the point Rachel made is very important, that there's a big dip with the years there's free reduced lunch, and now it looks like it's similar to some previous years. But I do wonder also, there's a question of if those reference numbers are increasing with inflation and maybe local incomes are not, or issues like that might be, a challenge.
We were having a lengthy discussion about this at our last administrative meeting too, and you just wonder things like healthcare, and we've seen that locally. The cost of healthcare has just exploded in this area, and it just makes you wonder if that has something to do with it as well. Because if people qualify, students qualify for Badger Care, they would be automatically direct cert into free and reduced lunch. So we're kind of studying that as well, Abe. But the fact of the matter is that it's pretty clear that when you're talking about students who are economically disadvantaged, it costs more to educate students in that situation. And I think that's another challenge that maybe some people don't recognize or understand if you're thinking about what school was like, back in the 90s.
It's the case, right, that free and reduced lunch is consistently a percentage of the federal poverty guideline, right? So the free lunch is always 185% of the federal poverty guideline, which is adjusted yearly. Yeah. Any other questions about the free and reduced meals report? All right, moving on to the
So this is really just a first talk about the district calendar. I wouldn't even say the first review. In 2 weeks, we will have a calendar for the board to review. But as we develop it, and it takes quite a bit to develop the annual calendar, just wanted to see if there are any parameters that the board would like to set as we begin our discussions. What we will do is, actually tomorrow we have an administrative meeting with the principals, and we will look at a very rough draft, and I actually attached that very rough draft just to give the board a reference. We'll discuss the very rough draft and revise it into something that we think is workable. And then we really enjoy the opportunity to get feedback from the staff, the teachers and support staff about what has worked and perhaps what some challenges have been. And then we'll bring the calendar for the board to review in 2 weeks, and then hopefully have the board consider a calendar during the December regular meeting. But are there any comments, any parameters, anything that board members would like to share at this point?
I'd like to just comment that I think the procedure that we're going through with this is really commendable. To bring it to us first early, and then to the principals, and then to the staff. I think it's, I don't know if you've always done that, but that's, I think, a great procedure.
Thank you. As there are three things that are on my mind about the calendar from the current year that we're currently working our way through. One is that my impression personally so far, from talking with the parents I know around the community, is that the reaction to dumpster days was pretty positive. I think actually they worked out more smoothly than I expected, and that was the impression I got, at least personally. A question I am currently asking parents is how the Thanksgiving week is going to go for them. Is it going to be, this is fantastic, I can actually get a break, etc. I really need this break, our family needs some time to travel, whatever. Or is it like, oh my gosh, I've got a kid at home and two parents working, or one parent working and no one to watch the kid, what am I going to do? And I think it could go either way in different circumstances, so I'm curious how this coming week is going to play out. And to the previous agenda item, I'm also curious if on these extended breaks, what the meal options are for families who do need meals when they're not, when kids not in school. And the third point is, I guess, hopefully this winter may be fairly mild, they say, cross fingers, with El Nino, but I think one of the big open questions for me is how the snow day limitation and alteration is going to play out, and obviously that's probably high on your mind at this point. So those are just my thoughts.
Thanks, Dave, and I think we can address most of those as we continue our review. But I will say, we're having the same discussions. One thing I will say with the Thanksgiving week, and I know there's some, like everything, it seems like, there's some misconceptions, and, some people think, oh, this is just for deer hunters, and that certainly is not the case. And you also have to compare what we have. You're not going to go to school on Thanksgiving, and you're not going to go to school the day after Thanksgiving for sure. And it was loud and clear over the years from staff that the day before Thanksgiving, with all the traveling that's done, is very important. So, then you're looking at Monday, Tuesday, and probably not even Wednesday. And then we ran attendance, you probably remember this, but we ran attendance numbers, and attendance in our schools were dismal. And part of our effort to boost attendance, and we need more effort in that area, we think this will help with that, eliminating some days where attendance was so low. So we will be studying that. I think all those are good ideas to keep in our minds over the next month. But I will say, it'd be nice to have all the time in the world to really evaluate the entire calendar, especially when there's changes. But we are already getting a lot of questions about next year's calendar, people trying to make plans, schedules, and such. So I do think it is important that we keep moving this forward, but we'll do it in a balanced way.
Any other comments on the district calendar? All right. Moving on. We have setting a date for the mid-year budget hearing.
The last few years, we've had a mid-year budget hearing. It's not something that's required by law, but I think it's been very well received by the community, and I know the school board members have had positive feedback on it. It's just a real nice way to kind of look at some of the trends and really kind of dig into the budget a little bit. I know every month the board members focus on the revenue and expenditure reports and approve the bills and such, but to take that higher viewpoint look at it, this year with a potential referendum, there's more attention than there typically would be. But even this year, with all the attention on the referendum, I do think it's as important as ever. And what we've done previously, really for the convenience of our community members and the school board, and everyone really, is to have it before the regular meeting in January. So unless there's an objection, we would go ahead and continue to schedule that the second Monday in January, which this year would be January 8th, 2024. We would begin that meeting at 5 o'clock. We can get through that before the regular meeting starts at 5:45. But do board members have any objection or any additional guidance you would like to give?
Do we just have that meeting here?
Yeah, we've been just having it here, and there's been plenty of room. Typically, we don't get as much attendance as we would hope for the mid-year budget hearing, but it also, by being here, we have it recorded, and people can watch online or refer to it later.
It wouldn't be surprised if attendance is higher this year for the reasons you mentioned. So
I think that would be great.
On that note, I wonder if we expect and or hope for attendance and kind of engagement to be higher, And looking at our previous agenda item on the district calendar, which has an error on January 2024, if Monday is really the 8th. But I'm just looking at the proposal on that calendar is that school will be closed on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday prior to that. And I wonder if there's any wisdom to pushing back the budget hearing.
We're talking about this January. I think you're looking at the draft calendar for next year.
Oh, so this should say 2025.
Probably, it's very, like I said, it's very, very rough.
Got it. All right. So what are the proposed dates that we do? So we would not be closed that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
This will be Monday, January 8th, 2024.
Yeah, no, I got that. I'm thinking about, sorry, I'm pulling up the real calendar now. Just thinking about if school has been closed for all of the previous week, is there a wisdom to pushing back the budget hearing?
The current year, it's only the first and the second. So there's the previous.
Which are the what? The Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and
Okay, so
Tuesday,
we're back
first
on
and
Wednesday.
second. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are school days, January 2024. So that it would be a Monday after 3 school days. I think that can
Okay.
not.
Then, yeah, you're right. Then my concern is but I still have this picture of it.
And it is the second Monday, so we have a regular school board meeting scheduled that evening as well.
Right. No, I understand we would have a meeting anyway. I guess I was just thinking that if we're trying to speak to the community and having a meeting on the tail end of the school break, is there a strategy decision there? But we don't have it on the tail end of the school break, so I apologize for that. Any other thoughts on the mid-year budget hearing? All right, next we have announcement of a special meeting to review referendum survey results.
Yeah, so we'll be back in action this Thursday, 5:45 right here. And we certainly hope that people would like to learn more about the referendum attend. The consultant from School Perceptions will be here to share the results of the survey. And then we also will have an agenda item for the school board to discuss a potential resolution and referendum question. No action will be taken at that meeting. However, we are anticipating that at the following meeting on Monday, November 27th, that could be an evening where the board consider action on a potential resolution.
And that special meeting has been properly noticed. We have a pretty short agenda, but probably long discussion. Next up.
Just to clarify on the agenda, it's not customary where we would have public comments on a meeting, this type of meeting, is that correct? I don't see them on here.
Correct.
Just so that people don't think, oh, we're going to come and have a bunch of things to talk about for this special meeting.
But there will be plenty of opportunity for people to make comment before any kind of vote on the 27th.
Correct. Yep.
Right. Next, we have a special report from Amy on the WASB Legislative Fall Conference.
Yes, I asked to attend this. I usually try to attend every year because I really like some of the things that they talk about at legislative advocacy meetings and, what's out there. And I just put some highlights of the report, and you all had, you can read it. I'm not going to, read it for you, but some of the highlights, were like declining enrollment. I didn't realize there were so many missing students due to the COVID, and they're trying to figure out where they are and how to find them. And there were some interesting remarks about, well, how are you going to find them? And somebody said, well, you just go to their house, you call them, and well, if you don't know where they are, it's kind of hard to find most information out. So it's kind of I guess, progress, work in progress, trying to figure that out. And then to think that that most of the, on the survey about public education, most people are pretty well satisfied with public education. Vouchers came up a lot, and as you all know, there's a lawsuit right now, that's going through. In fact, they're trying to get it to go to the state Supreme Court about vouchers, about not, it's not fair for taxpayer dollars to go to private schools when they need to go to public schools. So that was kind of a thing that was talked about quite a bit. bit. I'm trying to think. I always liked Charles Franklin from the Marquette Poll. He's quite funny and has some interesting, things to say. So yeah, so it was really good. It was really nice place. Yeah. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Were there any slides or links from the talk about demographics and pandemic effects that involve the missing population of students?
Yes, they're supposed to be up in the WASPy thing, and I'm not sure if it's for everybody to look at or if it's just those that were when we're in attendance. Also, the reading piece, I meant to talk about that, the reading piece. I assume that our district is pretty on top of that when you're reading information kind of stuff that's going out. But it has to be mandated for 2025, which I found interesting because, and that you can find on WASPy or DPI has the whole thing that claims all the different requirements, which are a lot, at several pages long. So if you want to, do some reading before you go to bed, that might be interesting to do. But the highlight is, phonics and, that kind of thing. It's interesting too because way back when I was in kindergarten, first grade, phonics was huge, and I learned to read. In fact, I was reading before I went to school. And then my brother, when he came along 4 years later, after me, they started this sight word stuff and, a whole different way, and he's still a non-reader in his, older age. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I'm kind of glad to see that maybe they're going to have some ways to improve reading for.
So the slides are on the WASPy website. If you just search for missing students, they come right away. So thank you.
Ryan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, and I think we're probably saying the same thing, but to your comment about the reading, that's called Act 20, and Brian is scheduled to give the board a presentation in December. That's what you were going to say? Perfect.
And I figured that we were up on top of things, but it was nice to learn more about it, as a school board member and seeing it from the outside. So, thank you for letting me attend.
Thanks for attending and thanks for such a detailed report. Yeah, great. Sorry. All right, now we're on to items related to next meeting dates for committees and reports. We have, as discussed, a special meeting on Thursday to review referendum results right here. No school, November 20th through 24th. A special board meeting on November 27th. The QIC meets here on December 4th at 3:50 p.m. There's a regular board meeting December 11th at 5:45, and the diversity committee meets at 3:50 here. And, okay. There's no questions about next meeting dates. I think I would suggest that we take a 5-minute break before moving into closed session.